एक लड़की स्टेज पर कार्यक्रम के दौरान नाचते नाचते गिर पड़ी और चल बसी।
कई ऐसी तस्वीरें सामने आई जिसमें कभी कोई जिम में कसरत करते करते गिर गया तो कोई डांस करते करते अचानक गिर गया।
ग्रेटर नोएडा में हार्ट अटैक से स्कूल के बच्चे की मौत होने का मामला सामने आया है।
The poster boy of the Kannada film industry, Puneet Rajkumar, dies at such a young age, 46 years, due to a cardiac arrest.
Actor and model Siddharth Shukla died this morning of a heart attack. He was 40 years old.
Heart attacks are suddenly claiming young lives.
What's happening in India? Why are so many young Indians dying of heart attack and cardiac arrest? Some blame it on COVID, whereas others say it is because of the changing lifestyle or lack of physical activity. But what on earth is the actual reason? Let's have a look. India has less than 20% of the world's population, but accounts for almost 60% of the world's heart disease burden. And also 50% of all the heart attacks in Indian men occur under the age of 50. But before we look at the reasons, I want you to know that this is a complex topic. And it is not just one factor that is responsible for these heart diseases. There are multiple factors that are linked to one another. To begin with, let's talk about genetics.
Hindustani, Asian Indians are more prone for heart attacks. We are getting heart attacks 10 years earlier because हम लोग genetically prone हैं.
Genetically, Indians are more prone to heart diseases. There was a study conducted by Sri Gangaram Hospital which found that Indians have a smaller body surface area and smaller blood vessels, which increase their risk of coronary artery diseases. And there is another research by IIT Madras in which they found that Indians and other South Asians have a gene variation which increase their risk of hypertension, diabetes, etc. And this gene is called CHGA. But these are genetic factors, and it doesn't really explain why heart disease is increasing with time. There is something called as non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, etc.
India has seen a big surge in non-communicable diseases.
And in India, these diseases are increasing at an alarming rate.
Over in India, younger and younger Indians are becoming inflicted with type 2 diabetes.
And what proof of it is required when the ICMR comes out and says
101 million Indians have diabetes.
Diabetes, for example, has become a very serious problem in India. So much that India is often referred to as a diabetes capital of the world. And it accounts for almost 17% of the world's diabetes burden. And in India, it is not just the adult population. Even the large number of children are also impacted by diabetes. But how is diabetes linked to heart diseases? Simply put, high blood sugar can damage the blood vessels and nerves that control your heart. But why are Indians more prone to diabetes?
We are very vulnerable for diabetes, we are very vulnerable for heart disease, we are 3 times more vulnerable than Caucasians.
Ethnically, we Indians have a greater degree of insulin resistance and are more prone to diabetes as compared to Caucasians.
So we have a perfect recipe for a disaster like this.
But this doesn't really explain why there is an exponential rise in diabetes. What else could be the reason? Lifestyle changes.
तो young लोगों को ही अपने lifestyle को change करना चाहिए.
According to one of the government surveys, Indians are getting fatter.
फूड डिलीवरी ऐप्स पर कुछ ना कुछ ऑर्डर करके मंगाते रहना और खाते रहने से लोगों में मोटापा बढ़ रहा है। इस मोटापे से गंभीर बीमारियां पैदा हो रही हैं।
क्या आपको पता है कि हर साल मोटापे की वजह से भारतीय 2 लाख करोड़ से ज्यादा खर्च करते हैं?
Now before we look at the reasons, let's first understand what is obesity and when is a person considered overweight. World Health Organization puts it this way. Body mass index over 25 is considered overweight and over 30 is considered obese. And if you were to go by this benchmark, according to National Family Health Survey, 23% of the men and 24% of the women in India are overweight. But you know what? This benchmark doesn't suit Indians. Many experts believe that for Indians, BMI needs to be at least 2 points lower because we Indians are more prone to central obesity, which means that Indians easily put on belly fat, and that's more unhealthy and dangerous fat than anywhere else on the body because of the fact that it has greater insulin resistance. And let's say BMI of 23 is a benchmark. Almost 40% of the Indians will be considered overweight. And WHO says too much body fat increases the non-communicable diseases, including 13 types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart problems, lung conditions, etc. But why are Indians getting fatter? Over the last few years, Indians are following one of the worst dietary patterns.
It's called trans fat, an industrially produced oil common in the baked, packaged and fried foods we eat every day.
Reusing the oil for cooking is one of the common cultures in India. But they increase the trans fatty acids. But what's the problem with trans fats? The problem is they increase your LDL cholesterol. There are basically two types of cholesterols. LDL cholesterol, also known as bad cholesterol, and HDL cholesterol, also called as good cholesterol. The bad cholesterol builds up in the walls of your arteries, making them hard and narrow, which makes the blood flow difficult. Trans fats are so toxic that they cause 500,000 deaths globally each year, and it's high time that Indians look into their diet. But wait, it is not just the diet. Even lack of physical activity or sedentary lifestyle is also one of the reasons for increase in obesity.
A lot of us spend hours a day doing this, sitting. Sitting at work, sitting to get to work, sitting to unwind when we get home.
World Health Organization recommends at least 2.5 hours of moderate to vigorous physical activity per week. So according to this, almost 40% of the Indians are inactive. But now you end up thinking, what about the ones who are physically fit? Why are they experiencing heart attacks? We have seen people experiencing heart attacks shortly after the gym sessions. What could be the reason? High intense workouts.
These time-efficient workouts are in vogue. All you need is 7 minutes for impressive results.
High intense training requires you to work out at your maximum capacity, and you must be out of breath by the end of it. But this could be dangerous. The problem here is the small plaque deposits, which are usually considered benign, could rupture with a sudden physical activity. According to Dr. Ganesh Kumar, physical activity with only few hours of sleep could be dangerous, and also remaining sedentary for a while and then suddenly engaging in high intense workouts could cause more strain to your heart. Almost 45% of the Indians suffer from something called as silent ischemia, which means they can have a massive heart attack without even being aware of it. So as per the doctors, exercise is not bad, but everything needs to be in moderation. These are the physical factors. What about the mental health? Dr. S. Arvind Kumar, who is a chief cardiologist at Kaveri Hospital, says that about 15 to 20% of his patients are below the age of 40 and are corporate IT employees who work with US clients. The primary reason that we observed was stress. Most of his patients had longer working hours, increasing targets, lack of sleep, which later causes hormonal imbalance, leading to obesity, hypertension, diabetes, etc. If you observe carefully, there is a linkage between one factor to another. If you consider stress, for example, today many young people believe that consuming alcohol and cigarettes can relieve their stress. And if you look at the tax revenue that was generated by the Indian government from smoking cigarettes in 2019, it was 15% higher than 2018, which obviously points to the increase in the consumption of tobacco. And do not be surprised with the fact that one of the biggest risk factors for heart disease today is smoking. Smoking builds up plaques in your arteries, which leads to the constriction of blood vessels and also causes your blood to thicken. So it is not just one factor. There are multiple factors that are linked to one another. So now that we have seen the causes, what could be the preventive measures? If you have a family history of cardiac disease, get a cardiovascular screening test. Choosing healthy lifestyle, consuming healthy food, getting regular physical activity, maintaining healthy weight, etc. And unless we work on these, Indian hearts could continue to be weaker as the days pass.